Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marchegiani here with Daniel Hill in the house. So really excited to have Daniel back on the show. Daniel is an EFT, EMDR, NLP expert. He deals with everything from human performance experts trying to, be at the highest level, whether it's in business or sports, or people dealing with debilitating trauma, depression, anxiety, and everyone in between. And we're talking about techniques today that get to the root cause of why you have emotional discord, disharmony, trauma, stress in your life, and just simple strategies that you can start to implement to work on neutralizing these things from a root cause perspective. Daniel, welcome to the podcast. How are we doing?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, very good. Yourself?
Excellent. Doing very good. And we'll put a link down below, guys. If you want to reach out to Daniel, there'll be a link right down below in the description. So if you want to schedule or dive in with him, Daniel's in the UK in the GMT time zone. So we'll put a link for you guys. If you want to reach out and schedule, that will be there for you. Daniel, how you doing, man?
I'm all good. I'm ready to go. We're
Awesome. Well, let's
ready
just
to
kind of
riff.
cool. Well, let's just dive in, right? We talked kind of pre-show about a handful of topics, ranging from just what's happening with patients that we see and such like that. What are the top things that have been coming into your office that you've been encountering with your patients that have been creating stress, that have been creating anxiety, that have been making patients or making people that you see feel out of balance and want your guidance and support to kind of bring some stability back to their lives?
Work, relationships, health, money. These are big topics that are in all of our lives. And the more we grow, the more that we have challenge. And
Mm-hmm.
every challenge has stress to it to an extent. So we're always encountering something new as we grow. So whether that someone comes to me because the wonder years of marriage have started to take a little bit of a toll, and they're either trying to save the marriage, or one partner has left, or they're thinking of leaving and they're starting over again. It's all new. Same as working on the relationship in order to be able to take it to a next level is something new. The same as you wish to earn more money, whether that's you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to work smarter, not harder, or you're in the corporate or on the corporate ladder somewhere and you wish to get a promotion and to earn more money, whether you're working on health and whether you're juggling 2 kids and a job and looking to move forward in life. Life is stressful, and all of the techniques that I use are about de-stressing you and helping you to take the next step in order to
Right.
move forward, because that's all that it is. If you think of what nature does, it's an unfolding of and flowing of form and shifting and changing. And the more that we grow like nature, the more that we can give back. So it's it's those subjects really that are quite common. If I look sort of in my diary over there, it's like I could pretty much go, right, that one's going through, what's that one going through? Don't know, that's a consultation. But everyone's going through something. And
Yeah.
stress is a big factor with everything.
Yeah. And I find with a lot of people, the first thing you have to do, because I deal with patients that have health issues on the functional medicine side, but of course we're doing new patient consults, we're diving in, we're trying to look at where the big stress is coming from, because if we have stress on the marriage or relationships or work or family, that could stress out the adrenals, that can put people into a sympathetic state that makes digestion hard, recovery hard, sleep
Yeah.
hard. And so I always just, even if I'm not going to dive into an issue specifically, I want to at least call attention and say, hey, yeah, this is an issue. We're going to put a spotlight on it. And we're going to try to take at least some action, whether it just is talking about the issue, whether it's a couple of strategies to see someone like you, or add some strategies at home, whether it's visualization or just doing some simple tapping on their own till they get professional help. I find the subconscious it's just this pesky little thing that's constantly poking you, and it's creating anxiety, it's creating disharmony to try to get you to do something about it. And
Right.
so
Yes.
kind of the analogy I tell patients is we always have to close the loop. Make sure you're doing something, even if it's not the thing, it's something, it's on your radar, it's on your awareness. And you have to get clear on what it is you want. Because I find I talk to patients all the time. Like, I'll just give the example of like marital stress, for instance, right? And I say, okay, well, what is the thing that you would like to see changed in the
Mhm.
relationship? What routine, what would you like to be shift? And it's like, well, I don't even know. It's like they just kind of have this like feeling, and it's like, well, is this like a FOMO kind of thing because of social media, or because the lust phase of relationship is out? Like what's the thing that you want tangibly, and how can you work on negotiating that and meeting in the middle with your partner? So the reason why I said that is you have to get clear on what the hell it is you want in the first place. It can't just be something in the ether. It has to be, you got to be able to put your finger on it. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Clarity is power. You hit
Yeah.
the nail on the head. Okay, so we were riffing earlier a little bit about someone and losing weight, and it was okay. Take a photo of the scales and but then you're clear about how much you're losing weight. I don't know what that was. We don't have to go into details, but it was something
Right.
where they losing a pound a month or something like that, taking a photograph of it or something like that.
Oh yeah, I just when I there are people that I have friends or people in my family that want coaching or want support, and I'm just like, well, I try to put 99% of the accountability on them. Well, take a picture of your food, take a picture of the scale, take a picture that you're going for a walk. Like I don't want to have to go and interrogate you about it. I want you just to give me the information, and it's either there and I know you're on track, or if it's not, I know you're not doing it right. It's like you try to put as much of the accountability on that person.
Yeah, yeah. It's very empowering to take 100% responsibility. The ego doesn't want to do that. The ego
Right.
wants to blame. The ego wants to blame social media. The ego wants to blame parents. The ego wants to blame the partner. The ego will look everywhere other than looking at the self. So it is about surrendering and taking accountability and responsibility. And that in turn actually helps you to become more empowered, and you actually surrender and you come out of your ego by doing it. I don't think anybody's ever achieved anything of any worth that we like. If we talk about anybody of standing who was around, in the last 100 years, that has made a difference in consciousness, that hasn't been through something that's been incredibly challenging. And it's through the challenges that we grow. We dig deep and we find something within. When people create great relationships, or they recover from health challenges, or they overcome anxiety, or they start living the life of their dreams, they will tell you, if they're honest and authentic enough, that it's been really hard. It wasn't straightforward and easy. There was a protocol that they had to start doing. It was something that they had to consistently take accountability for. It's very much a recipe. Everything becomes a recipe. But if we go deeper into accountability, sometimes it's, I heard Jordan Peterson say this actually. He said, he worked as a clinical psychologist, Canadian clinical psychologist, Enneagram type 1. He said the majority of people, the challenges that they have in their life, if you spent 5 minutes on the end of your bed before you went to sleep, and just ask yourself, what is it that I need to do? And I would actually use the word grow. What is it that I need to do to grow? Because we grow beyond our challenges. We grow beyond the limitation. So what is it that I need to do that I'm not yet doing? Write this one down.
Yep.
Yet is a really powerful word. It's a
Totally.
presupposition. So it's presupposing that you will do it at some point. So what is it that I'm not yet doing that will help me to grow beyond this? Or even more specifically, work out and become very focused on your outcome. So what is it that I haven't done yet that'll help me achieve, and then fill in the blank, whatever that is. But if that blank needs to be very clear. So we're talking about vision, but then also what's the feeling of, if you've manifested that and it's in your life, what does it feel like now that you're in that place? And what does it sound like? So that's internal dialogue and things that people are telling you. Then your unconscious is starting to go to the reality that it already exists, and you're starting to build inside of your mind a neural net, which is a belief system that it's already happened.
Right.
And in doing so, you'll start relaxing that little bit more and be moving forward towards that reality. And this works with everything. Now you might say, okay, well, I'm going to do this, and you might do it for a month, and you might move incrementally a little bit further forward. And a lot of people then give up. Why? Because they're not accountable anymore. Oh, I tried it. I did it. Oh, it's not working. What else do I need to do? If you look into nature, everything is incremental. I introduced you to Kaizen about a year
Yeah.
ago, I think, didn't you?
Yeah.
Didn't I? And I came across that 14 years ago. My girlfriend was a clinical psychologist, and she introduced it to me, and I went, "Oh, I don't even know that." So it's small steps. She said, "Well, it's an 8-hour audio program. I think it's 7 hours," and she said, "You don't know it because you're not doing it." And I thought, okay, yeah, she's got some. She's got some a good point there, and often the ego looks at only the outcome briefly, doesn't spend enough time in having the outcome or what the outcome feels, in a sensory way, what it sounds like and what it looks like. And then it just wants big steps. Just give it, whether it's money. What's it like? I really want to win $1 million. I really want $1 million. Okay. So how much time do you spend in the reality that, you've got $1 million? And it doesn't always have to be about money. It can be anything. So most people don't spend enough time in the reality, and then they take a few big steps. They don't look at like, okay, this is like climbing a mountain. Let's say we're going to climb a mountain. How many steps do you need to take to climb the mountain? How many challenges do you have to go through? The crevasses? How much training do you have to do? What kind of mindset do you have to be in? But if you had enough coaching, you'd get over that mountain, because you would just get back to, okay, what's the vision? The vision is being at the top of the mountain. Okay, what does it feel like being at the top of the mountain? Yeah, I can look down where I was, and wow, yeah, I've put my flag there, or I've taken my social media post at the top. I've hugged somebody I was up with. We did it. What are you saying to yourself? Oh, I can't believe it. Like, I can believe it. It's happened because I envisioned that I was going to do it. Yeah. What's anybody saying to you? Well done. Fantastic. But it was incremental. It didn't just happen all by itself. And if you can you can just use small steps and visualize and feel and auditorily listen to what it is that you're saying to yourself and what others might be saying to you. Daydream. I often say to my clients, I say, you went to school. Most of the time, teachers are going, stop daydreaming. Justin, wake up, stop daydreaming. Okay. But in the back of the class, you kind of, oh. Daydreaming is good. Daydreaming is almost self-hypnosis. But if you can do it to the place where you're imagining the reality that you wish to experience, if you can blend that with your heart, if that's something you wish to do, not necessarily what you want, and I'm talking about the 40,000 neurons down here that are very powerful, then you'll start to create a really great reality, because you'll really start loving the reality that you like, and you won't lose heart. So if you wish to lose weight, if you wish to earn more money, be specific about how much. If you wish to have a great relationship, just be clear on the outcome. And how many people do this? Not many. And that's why I get clients, because I see clients over a period of time. I've been seeing some clients on and off for 8 years. And that doesn't mean they need to. It's because they benefit from doing it, because I've shifted them so far over a period of time that it just becomes almost a no-brainer, because they just put it as a business expense, or they've made money and they can afford to do that. Other people have watched my YouTube videos over the years, or I put lots of content. I think I got 3 or 4 million views in the last 12 years. People will get back to me and go, I've been using your videos. They haven't paid me any money. And they'll just go, it works. Brilliant. Great. So you can do it by yourself. But it's literally those steps.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you'll see it today where people will complain, well, your services are so expensive. It's like, hey, for every person I've helped 10 people outside just with my content for free that I never even knew about. I mean, we live in a phenomenal time. I mean, to think that you can access everything in the world just on this. You can have the best
village,
books, the best whatever that you want. Yeah. It's right there. I mean, it is so easy. I mean, I remember, being in middle school and going in the library and getting Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich on a cassette and walking around with a Walkman, or listening to.
And you were in middle school. How old were you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was, 13, 14. I remember listening to a audio on leadership, or, I used to sign up for the Nightingale Conant audio tapes and stuff. I remember on a Walkman.
That's cool at 13.
Right. And so now it's just so easy. Right. And so I tell patients, I know who you are by just your habits. Right. Like if you look at a successful pilot has a certain checklist they follow at takeoff. If something ever happens wrong, is a certain checklist they follow, because that is the greatest chance of not missing anything and success, right? We call it best practices. It's the same thing with your body, with your health. Like if you start your day out and you've gotten good sleep, got to bed before midnight, you've hydrated with good, clean, filtered water with electrolytes, you've eaten healthy, nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory foods, preferably with good proteins, and fats in your meal, your brain is going to be set up to deal with success totally different than someone that's on sugar, processed chemicals, glyphosate, not getting enough nutrition, poor sleep. You go put stress in that person's life, they're going to break. They're going to get triggered. They're
Yeah.
going to they're going to be maladaptive to
Yeah.
stress, to
Yeah.
emotions. And yeah, can you still work on and use the different techniques that we talk about here, EFT, EMDR? Yes, absolutely. But everything works better on a well-fed body, just like chiropractic. If I'm adjusting someone who's inflamed, but their diet stinks and they did all the wrong things I mentioned, they're not going to heal nearly as well as someone who is dialed in. So thoughts on just the environment, the milieu of the habits, and how important that is to allow some of the therapies that we're going to talk about to work better.
You've
I know it's a
covered it
lot.
all. You've
Yeah.
covered it all. I mean, it's actually so basic and so easy. And I've been doing this like you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
It's really hard to go back to how it used to be, but I know I was bad at one point. So it's just becoming aware of that. Most people sabotage themselves enormously. And so this is interesting. So we have two forces inside of us. Well, I say one force and one power. So the power is the power that you wish to grow. Okay. And the force is that you wish to be safe. Well, how can you grow and be safe at the same time? What tends to happen inside of people where they sabotage themselves is there's a fight. So the fight to stay put could be eating really poor food, could be not getting enough sleep, could be eating all really the wrong stuff. And that is actually sabotage, because it's then harder to have, because you've got less energy in order to be able to do all the things that you would really love to be doing. And there's that internal kind of conflict there. But where you and I have moved forward, like I've been doing this 20 odd years now, and it just becomes such a habit that I'm not even afraid of growing old anymore, because I realize that I can be in incredible shape in my 60s, in my 70s, and my 80s, because looking after myself has become essential to not only my own happiness, but a deeper sense of peace. Because the first few decades of my life were very challenging. So I've actually used that pain of not having much money, of having really poor health, which was the first part of my life, of bad mental health, bad emotional health, bad physical health, to the point that, okay, I've now crossed over to the place where I can't do that anymore. It's so painful. And everybody, you will have clients like this. They're coming to you with the pain point. What's the pain point? The pain point is the health is struggling. But there are so many things that we can do that are, get to bed on time. Just, I think you were talking about in your book that you've written, sort of with the thyroid book, the recovery book.
Yep.
And just the Kaizen principle of just drink water. I mean, because
Yes.
I know people in my life, and I won't mention names, and they don't drink water. It's like,
Yes.
oh my Lord, I was doing that 20, 30 years ago,
Yes.
knowing it was making a tiny bit of difference. And it was only tiny, but I used to go by this, the 2% principle. If it was going to improve my life by 2%, I would do it. 1%, I almost couldn't sum up the motivation to do it. But the 2% principle, because I knew that it would compound. I then actually did start doing 1% stuff, and sometimes even half a percent. But everything will compound. It's like sort of financially trading. It's like you just build on something. It's all part of growth. I think there's a lot of...
And just, I want to highlight one thing you said there. We talked about the Kaizen principle, just so everyone listening understands that principle. At the end of my book, I kind of highlighted this right at the last page of the book. So I think it's important because when people start out and you give people a lot of information, they just get paralyzed. And what also happens is good can become the enemy of great. And if you're not going to come in at a great level, they're just, why try, right? And that's the problem most people have. And so the Kaizen principle is just take one thing. So for instance, you're super unhealthy, you have all these habits of just poor lifestyle. It's like, we're going to just focus on having clean, filtered, mineral rich water. And that's all you're going to drink throughout the day. And then once you've done that, all right, now we're going to just try to have protein, a fist size of protein in every meal. All right, now we're going to try to add a vegetable with that. And so every week we're just layering. And what happens is you get this dopamine hit of doing the right thing. Then you
Yes.
feel the benefit
Yes.
in your physiology. Because if you go from having soda and alcohol and junk food to now just clean filtered water, you're going to feel a benefit in your physiology. And then plus you feel the dopamine hit of doing it. And then you add the next thing in, which creates another bump in your physiology, another dopamine hit. And then you just keep on layering it. And then in a few months, you have all these amazing things that you've already kind of dialed in, so to speak. So that's kind of the Kaizen principle. You're just layering and using that dopamine hit of like, I did the right thing, to just stack on top of that.
It is. Kaizen is a principle that comes. It's partly. It was developed after the Second World War, after they were rebuilding Japan, and it's the art of manifestation through small and steady incremental steps, and that's what nature does. That's what nature does. I've got a scab on me right now. Well, if I keep picking at it, it's going to just continue to heal, but just let it do its job. It's amazing. Sort of like, it's all doing it all by itself. It's incremental steps. It goes from a wound, it sort of covers itself over. You'll know more. You're the doctor. And the body's just designed to do this. It's incremental. And healing is incremental too. I know people have spontaneous healings with various things, but it's a majority of people's shift in their in the manifestation of anything is through small and incremental steps. We often talk about the overnight success, but where's your big poster? Is that in the other room? You've got your poster.
Success, hard work, persistent, late nights, right? Or I think it was the guy on Shark Tank there, Damon John. He's like, well, you're an overnight success. Well, it was 20 years of hard work, and then overnight, all of that hard work kind of
all of the
came to fruition, if you will, right?
Absolutely.
But it was 20 years of planting seeds, if you will, to get to that point, right?
But it's exactly the same in the manifestation of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly the same. So if you go and study someone that has manifested something that you wish to experience in your life, whatever that is, whether it's losing weight or recovery from health, a health challenge, or whether it's meeting your life partner, or whether it's making, I don't know, $30,000 a year if you're struggling. Some people might be watching this and really struggling. We all had goals at some point in life, and they all were like seemingly unachievable. They were beyond our consciousness. Everybody's got that. Even as child, it's sort of like, you dream of, one day I'm going to kiss a girl. Whoa, how's that going to happen? And then, you bypass that and you go on to the next stage. And there's, it's all part of growth. It's all part of growth. And if you can just take that, also the thing that you were talking about, which was, the dopamine hits, you then wish to become more accountable because your brain is now functioning in the correct way. It's designed like this. Everything in nature is designed like this. And it's our job to continue to nurture ourselves. It's our job to continue to work on ourselves. It's our job to love ourselves. It's our job to look after ourselves. And if you can do that, you'll stop whining. You'll stop giving energy to other people. You'll stop. There's a lot of energy in being stuck. There's a lot of energy in being sabotaged. If you free that up, look what you could do. What might that feel like? What does that sound like? What does it even taste and smell like? Mm-hmm. It's addictive in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I agree. So when I look at anyone who's struggling in their lives, I look at, one, what do your habits look like? Right? Everything from sleep to just hydration. What's your self-talk like? I mean, I look at people in their life that they'll set strong boundaries in regards to their friends and what their friends say to them. No one's in a most people aren't going to allow a friend to get into their life that's gets totally negative and talks down to them. But your most important friend, your inner self voice, will be incredibly negative and just tell them all the time why they can't do certain things. And so I just get people to start monitoring what does their self voice look like? What's the percent of, hey, you can do it, positive affirmations, learn, growth, appreciation versus negativity? Like, what's that
Yes.
percent, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
times you'll see it's totally skewed in the negative side of the fence.
Yes.
But then also we have, most people's biggest trauma is their upbringing, right? Whether it's something that happened to them, a car accident, whether it's relationships with family, whether it's the death of a loved one, these traumas are there, whether it's going to war, right? And these things can negatively impact your physiology. They can make a indelible mark on your nervous system that brings you into a fight or flight pattern very
Yes.
easily. Let's just, talk about when you see people like this. Obviously, we've set the foundation. We know we're diving in deep. We get clear on expectations, goals, habits, self-sabotage. We look at the whole 9 yards. We look at, as Daniel will say, the Enneagram personality types, because personality types matter. That gives you an idea of where someone's at and the better way to help them and how to communicate and dive in. But what are some of the big, starting points modality wise that you're going to start with? Is it some of the NLP? Is it tapping? What are those big things for you?
I generally do tapping because most people are very toxic and they've never come into any kind of work that has de-traumatized them. And it doesn't mean that you have to have traumas in your past, in as much as like, oh well, I was raped, or I was in a store and someone came in with a gun. It doesn't have to be like that. A lot of we all carry stuff from where we haven't fully closed the loop and we haven't actually released old energy. It's kind of stuck energy. It might have been from, what was I doing in a consultation? Someone said to me, he really looked up to, it was an Enneatype 3, and he really looked up to this other guy, and he was very authentic and open at 20 years old. And this person sort of disrespected him for his authenticity, and that has blocked some of his potential. Is that a trauma? Well, he felt traumatized by it because, he was looking to this person for love and approval and respect, and he didn't feel respected. So we all carry various things. It's like, sometimes I've worked with people with eating disorders. You trace it all the way back to a throwaway comment that a dad had said when she was 14 years old. Like, you don't want to be fat like your mother. And that's not, you think that's a trauma? That is it produced a 10 out of 10 negative nervous response. The sympathetic nervous system lit up like a Christmas tree, and they're just sort of like traumatized by it. Oh my God, I can't be like that. So one comment, but it's not going to be one comment really. One of the biggest things also, which underline all of the trauma stuff that we've got in our past, is what I call limited belief conditioning, in that majority of us have come from some level of dysfunction in our childhood. I think there's a study, you might be able to pull it up. I know you're connected with the internet there, but if you just Google something like what percentage of us come from dysfunctional childhoods, and I think it's about, there's various studies and various things out there. I think the lowest I've seen is about 80%, which is like 4 out of every 5 of us. That's the majority of us. And I've seen it as high as, I think, 93%.
Yeah, 2019 ACE study, 60%. But also too,
60.
there's just,
okay.
Yeah, 60. But also too, there's this, if you look at,
That's
maybe
3 out
every
of 5.
generation says this, but if you go back and you look at how hard people had it 50, 60 years ago in regards to no air conditioning, maybe working on a farm all day, hard labor, just not having any of the amenities, being totally uninformed, which is probably a good thing, right? In certain ways when it comes to social media and being inundated with news and what your friend's doing. They had it a lot harder in certain ways, but then you see that the little bit of trauma that kids go through today. And it's like, oh, my parent took away my iPad, or this small little thing happened to me. And it's like, all right, well, I think people are also getting very hypersensitive today. Is that a social media phenomenon? Are you noticing that too?
I do notice it, and it's very funny because I'm 50 years old, and I remember asking my grandmother, sort of, when you were pregnant, what did you do? Sort of like, because they were lucky, they had money, and they came from my grandfather inherited a timber merchants, but they were the only phone in the street. Can you imagine
Right.
sort of your wife being pregnant and
Oh
like,
my God.
oh, what are we going to do? What are we? And the whole road came down to to
Oh my
use the phone a
gosh.
lot. Yeah, it is. I think social media then triggers the ego of young people because there's a lot of expectation there. But equally, you know, with social media, everything's there. So that there's people that there's good role models out there. There are people that are significantly out of their ego and, you know, giving content out there. I just think it's probably it's like turbocharged it a little bit more. It was still there in the 80s when I was a
Yep.
kid. But it's just more, you're just more aware of it perhaps. But there's plenty of people that you can follow that, you know, it's not all about ego. And so if it's about getting what you want, you're going to be unhappy for the rest of your life because your ego will never be satisfied. Promise. Trust me here. I've been doing my job 18 years and I've worked with some people who've got everything that they want and they're still not happy. And they come to me and go, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You're just like the majority of other human beings. You're not practicing gratitude enough, and you're not being still, and maybe you're not being authentic enough, and maybe you're not coming from your heart enough. Maybe this is just all about your head. And if you listen to the head, there's 80 to 100 billion neurons up here that would keep, you know, there's a whole committee up there, and they're sort of all kind of like going, oh, yeah, let's get what we want. Let's get what we want. Okay, well, I want my iPad. I want my iPad. And then I want this product and I want that thing. And then I want this amount of followers. And then I want this. Where's this magical paradise that you're going to get to? Sort of like, oh, when I get here, then nonsense.
Well, I think a lot of this
Absolute
correlates
nonsense.
with the victim mindset too. I think society as a whole has made it very fashionable to be a victim, to kind of play that fiddle. Whether you go on social media
Okay.
whining about something, I think it's very easy to do that, right? And you know, I always tell patients or people that I'm chatting with when they have an issue, I said, hey, it's much better off being in the driver's seat, taking accountability, because as soon as you have victim language, you're admitting that the problem exists out. The solution is the problem and the solution are out there, and you don't have control over it. You're just a ship in the ocean, right? And whatever wave comes at you, comes at you. But if you're in the driver's seat, you say, hey, I have accountability, even though circumstances are tough. And I go back to my mentor, Jim Rohn. There's one thing he said 25 years ago that I heard, it just sticks with me. His exact tone and language. He said, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Wish you had that skill, you had that mindset, you had that character or tenacity just to overcome that. Because life's never going to be fair. So it's just wish you were better. Wish, hey, what's the skill set that I need to overcome this challenge? Right?
Yeah,
Thoughts?
absolutely. I think everything that comes our way, I'm very spiritual, so I think that everything that comes our way is kind of divinely put there for your growth. I certainly, I like who I am, and I like the consciousness that I've got to. But it would not have come if I hadn't have been through an enormous amount of suffering, and I had to find my way out of it. I'll always like the metaphor of the caterpillar that became the moth or the butterfly, because it goes into the cocoon, and if you cut that struggling caterpillar, which is, you know, it's almost a moth or a butterfly, but if you cut that open so it doesn't have to struggle as much, it's then not strong enough to survive. So struggle is nature's way of strengthening you.
Well, there's a statement that you say, Daniel, all the time, and I'll repeat it on air, but I'll kind of make it the PG version just so the AI doesn't see
Thank
it.
you. Thank
The
you.
the
Poop.
the poop of today is the. So how do you say it again? It's
Depends who
the
I'm speaking to.
today is the
Yeah.
manure for tomorrow, right? The hard stuff you go through today becomes the fertilizer to allow that soil to grow and reap what you reward, essentially.
Yes.
So
We
the
all
idea
can.
that if you have this life that has no resistance and no character building situations and no hardships, that's a soil that has a lack of fertility, nutrients to grow a crop yield that will sustain you.
Yes. Yeah, and you can see those people on social media where they've been handed money and it's all been easy.
Yeah.
I've met these people in life, and that is a challenge in itself, because then they're having to integrate into life having no real depth. And when we go through these things that are hard, it actually makes us dig deeper when we take accountability for that. And I'm telling you, you are deep. Most people only, it's like a swimming pool. Most people just play around in the shallow end. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the ego stuff is all shallow.
It's all shallow.
You are deep. You are unfathomably deep. Every human being is. There's a man, I think his name was Paul Alexander, and he had polio when he was very young. I can't remember. I think it was like 6 or 7 years old. Have you ever heard of this guy?
I think so.
He was in an iron lung for about 60 years. So that's a big metal thing that's created that helps you to breathe. Okay.
Yep.
I would often cry just listening to this man, because that is an enormous amount of suffering. He was out of that iron lung, I think, for an hour a day. I think he passed the bar. I think he became a lawyer and still managed to do that. He had a very long-term relationship with someone. It wasn't a physical relationship, but it was a great relationship with someone, and it was a loving relationship. He developed that. And he was, I think he did inspirational, might have written books and things, but his consciousness was just one of surrender and positivity and hope. And when you look at, the consciousness that's out there in life, and here's a man who lived during our era and saw a lot of shift and change, but he had an enormous depth to him, where he had embraced the challenge. They couldn't change it. And in as much as, he's had polio and he can't change that, but he was still asking questions of himself that were about growth. And what is it that I can do in order to change my life? How can I make this better? And he gave back to the world, and his consciousness is something that has touched me, because I don't think hardly anybody would know what that's like, to be in an iron lung 23 hours a day, and you come out of that thing for an hour a day. 12 years ago, I went around Auschwitz. Also, I went by myself. It took me an hour. I went to Poland by myself. I went around Auschwitz for an hour by myself. Not for an hour. It was 3 hours. And
what was that like?
Humbling. And I went into those gas chambers. And I think it's important to recognize that everybody is living at an age of incredible opportunity, that many people, many of our ancestors would dream to be in this place. Kings of 1,000 years ago would dream to be able to do what we can now. And so what are you going to do with your life? What do you wish to do with your life? Can you still hear me? You've disappeared. He's disappeared. I'm not sure. Oh, you're back. Hello. And I can't hear you now.
I'm going to let you keep riffing. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to just grab a water. Keep riffing.
Okay. Go for it. So, here we are in life with opportunity, and no matter your challenge, whatever it is that you're going through, and everyone's going through something, can you surrender to it? Can you stop trying to get out of it in big steps? Think about the caterpillar that becomes the chrysalis. It's about small moves. It's trying to get out of that chrysalis. It's making small moves all of the time. Small moves, small moves, small moves. Great question. I often said this to clients. A great question to ask yourself is, what is it that will help me to grow today? What is it that will help me to grow today? And sometimes don't answer that question straight away. Pose it with stillness, because in your gut, you have 100 million neurons approximately. That sounds a lot, okay? 100 million neurons. But in your brain, you have about 100 billion. It's probably about 83 billion, but who cares? Let's call it 100 billion. So 100 million versus 100 billion, you need 1,000 million to be 100 billion. So 1,000 million. So it's only 0.1%. But often the things that we need to do will come from your intuition and come from your gut. And it's important to still your mind, where the 100 billion in the head, it's almost, we could call it 999 committee members and one wise sage that's down in the gut that knows what is the right thing to do. And if you can still your mind enough, that the committee members can all like have a little break. They can all go and have a nice little meditation somewhere. And let's just become aware of what the sage says. Here he is, Dr. J's back. And the sage often, which is intuition, doesn't speak words. So it's like a knowing. And I think there's an inbuilt intuition within everybody that knows what to do in order to grow and grow beyond your challenge. So creating some stillness and tuning in to your gut, your intuition, the 100 million neurons, can be essential in order to be able to know what it is that you need to do in order to grow and grow beyond this latest challenge. Can you still hear me? Are you back? Yep. Oh, I can't hear you. Nope. The audio's gone.
I got you. You're good. I hear you on my end. Yep. So you put a lot of things out. All those things resonate. They all make a lot of sense. Let's just go into some more specific tools, right? So the average person who's debilitated with anxiety, debilitated with some kind of a stress, and they feel like they're just constantly going from one trigger to the next trigger to the next trigger. What's just one simple exercise we can start with out of the gates that'll start gaining people a little more traction back in their life?
What with, let's say, lots of anxiety?
Yeah, anxiety, and just think of situations that you see come into your office every week. What does that look like?
It's totally unique, and I don't have a protocol that this is what I need to do. I'm often going with my intuition of what needs to be done. But I think one protocol could be stilling your mind and doing just what I've said, and writing down things that you know that would help you that you haven't yet done or haven't yet taken enough action in order to do.
Right.
I remember when I was really sick, I remember reading a book about a guy who recovered autoimmune disease, which is what I was going through. And he had a conversation with his uncle. And he was going through times when he would kind of like moan and it was awful and everything. And his uncle said, okay, I've heard you, be in this place. But what I'd like you to do is, we're fine for continue to talk like this, but what I'd really like you to do is come off this call and spend half an hour writing down all the things that you know might help you that you haven't yet done, or at least haven't really committed to for a period of time, and brainstorm, or I've even come up with the word heartstorm. So these are all things that you wish to do.
Love it. Yep.
And write those down and get back to me. And so he'd never done this before, because it's a good coaching question. And it's handing accountability back to the patient, back to the client, back to your mother, brother, sister, our
Right.
friend who comes to us for help, even ourselves. And then you'll be amazed what you might come up with. I mean, I remember sort of like thinking, yeah, well, I did meditation for quite a few. Yeah, but I didn't do that. And then it was, and so I remember my path was, I got heavily into EFT, which was de-traumatizing myself. So I did a lot of EFT tapping technique. Then that branched off, and I just found all different types of tools that aided the unconscious. So it branched off into sort of EMDR, EMIT. This is eye movement integration therapy. Eye movement desensitization reprocessing is EMDR. There's a technique called havening. Then I was meditating a lot, and that was beneficial. But then I started doing binaural beats. I just found out research that binaural beats are really, really good, and then I bought a program and started doing that. Then there was only in practice, in seeing clients as well as developing myself, then something called the Enneagram became really powerful. So I think the two things that I do are, with most clients, is de-traumatize people as much as possible using something called EFT and EMDR, EMIT, havening. And then the next thing is working on mindset, which is the NLP part of what I do, neuro-linguistic programming. So that is sensing the reality that you wish to experience. So sensing the reality you wish to experience in the future, whatever that is, and then helping people to hypnotize themselves to that reality. And then I do a lot of what I call now Enneagram mentoring. So the Enneagram, Ennea means 9, gram means graph. It's a graph of 9 types, and it's so much more than that. So it's an incredibly deep spiritual / psychological tool for transformation. And it highlights our weak link, and everybody's got one. And you've most likely heard of the adage, we're only as strong as the weakest link that we have inside of us, and it helps to strengthen our weak links. So the more that you are strong there, you're going to be strong everywhere. And amazingly, I have a career born out of the simplicity of doing that. I do a lot more than that, but everything that everybody comes with is either emotionally or psychologically a challenge. And there's two things. What emotions are to do with feelings, and psychologically are to do with thoughts. So your thoughts and the feelings. So if you can build on your own thoughts, your inner thoughts and your inner emotions, and you work on those things, so ultimately that is going in your favor, and then you're conditioning yourself or programming yourself in order to be able to experience a better life. A lot of, also, I sum up things up quite simply as I help people to use their mind rather than have their mind use them. I really like that one, because most, you were talking about the self inner talk or whatever. It's all sabotage. It's all based on trauma and conditioning in our past that will just want to sabotage and hold us back, or it holds us to a high standard of accountability, because then it's afraid that we're going to be rejected if we're not at that level. We're not going to be approved of. We're not going to be loved. We're not going to be someone of value anymore. We're not going to be worthy of something, and we'll be discarded. So they're all survival techniques.
You also see it too when you look at someone else, right? And you start projecting, I wonder what they think about me. I wonder this. And it's like, in the end, most people are all in their head and focused on themselves. Most people are not walking into a room and hypercritical and thinking about you. They're just 100% on themselves. That's most people.
Yes,
most people are so they're so hypercritical of themselves and what everyone else thinks about them. But in the end, most people are just hypercritical of themselves, thinking about them, and no one's really cares that much about you, because everyone's, we're all the star in our main play, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. It's quite liberating, actually, because when you start, there'll be a part of you when you grow that'll actually be afraid that you're going to be seen as having changed, and you're going to attract attention that you haven't had before. But most people, well, the majority of people are, it's like they'll think about you for maybe 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute if you're lucky, in a negative way or whatever, and they'll be focusing on their own stuff. And also, the majority of people who criticize and judge and are in judgment have enormous issues. I'm not a very judgmental person, and if I am, I'll hold myself accountable and go, okay, that's ego. You can drop that, can't you? Because it's not serving anybody that going around judging people. So don't judge yourself in that way. Be as loving and as compassionate as you can with yourself. If it is a technique and tool, I remember doing this years ago. I don't do it so much anymore, but just start talking to yourself in the mirror, because there's somebody looking back there, and that person can speak nice words and smile at you and say hi, wink at you. kiss you. I do remember giving myself a kiss. That was weird. But it's just I started doing mirror work, and I've done mirror work with people before, where it's like that they'll get a mirror out in a session, and I'll say, okay, talk to that person. What do you think when you're looking at that person? And if it's like really negative, well, what, you're hoping someone new is going to arrive? Like, that person's been there all of your life, and they're going to be there to the end of your life. So it'd be a really good idea if you get to like that person, because they need
100%.
someone on their side. They need someone there on their side. So be that person, be that compassionate person, be that loving person, unconditionally loving to yourself. It's it'll empower you. I've spent a lot of time in stillness, meditating and just being alone, and that's my thing. It's for my Enneagram type. That's really good. But in doing that, I also know that there's a deep sense of okayness inside of me.
Yep.
I don't really care what other people think of me anymore. If it does come out and it's negative, it's kind of a bit prickly, but it's okay. Yep. It's a bit like a hedgehog, Yep. It's okay. It's not. It's okay. It's okay. And to know that it's their stuff. And the more that you have a degree of self-love and compassion, and to know your own worth, to know your own value, you'll become significantly less judgmental. Yeah, anybody who's judgmental has a big inner critic, and that they're not healthy in doing that.
I agree. And I think it's really easy for people to think, well, you don't care what anyone else thinks. Like, that's a recipe for sociopathy, right? Or being entitled. But in the end, I think you need to have an inner critic and an inner standard of how you treat people, and that you are raising your standard, that you're going to treat people as if how you want to be treated. And you have an awareness and a feedback loop where you are monitoring and seeing how you're treating people, and making sure your tone and you're being respectful, and you're treating people at a standard that would be acceptable for you. And you make sure that standard is high. I think that's really important. But at the same standpoint, when people are hypercritical back of you, it's like, well, it's okay. That's your stuff. That's your opinion. That's your trauma that you're projecting on me. As long as I know I'm meeting my standard of acceptability, I'm following that golden rule, which is, a lot of the biblical lessons in the Bible, right? I mean, it's mostly that golden rule coming back, right?
Yeah.
Love your neighbor, right? But also it presumes love your neighbor as you love yourself, which presumes that you also love yourself back. Mm-hmm. Most people don't have a lot of inner love for themselves. And so they can only treat you to the degree to which they love themselves. They can only write a check to cash that's in their bank account. And if their bank account's low, energetically low, then that check's going to be very small, right? Thoughts on that?
No, because you've just covered it beautifully. Fabulous. No, that's it.
So the point of that is raise your standards higher than others. I think that's number one. And I think number two is have that feedback loop where you're critical of yourself to make sure that you are meeting other people's standards, so you don't get caught in the feedback loop of being a narcissist. And then I think you got to have strategy. So I like, for changing physiology, movement, whether it's going for a walk, breathing, tapping, cold exposure. I love, those are kind of things that I like to change physiology. What else are you doing? Can you give me one or two here maybe we haven't talked about here?
What protocols in order to
just give me one thing, whether it's a tapping thing or an eye movement thing, anything that you're stressed, you got this trauma, you get this thing, it's right in front of you, it's taken over your life and your focus. How can we neutralize that thing?
Okay, so first port of call, tapping. If you don't know what that is, EFT, emotional freedom techniques, just call it tapping. Should we run through that just a tiny bit?
Yeah. Okay. Let's do like a 1 minute overview.
1 minute overview. Tap the top of your head. Breathe, and breathe into your heart.
Feel that chest expand outwards.
Release and let go. Yeah. So you're breathing in shorter. I know that you breathe in, your out breath is longer. Okay. Beginning of the eyebrow. So count in for 3, breathe out for 6, something like that. Side of the eye, breathe in, count for 3. Hold it, breathe out for 6. Under the eye. This is a really good one for anxiety, but all of these points will be good. Breathe in. Hold it tiny bit and then release and let go. Imagining the stress melting away. Top lip. Hold it. Release and let go. Chin point. Breathe in. And release and let go. In doing so, feel your feet on the floor. Feel your bum, wherever that is. If you're sitting down, feel your body. Collarbone. Breathe in. Hold it. And release and let go. You can make a noise if you like. And there were many points, but we're going to do this one. We're going to finish on this one. Under the arm. Ladies, lower bra strap. Gentlemen, you can imagine where that is. Breathe in. Hold it. Release and let go. There you go. Dr. J showing you where. Okay, releasing and let go. Now just check in. Most people will go, I feel a bit buzzy. Even if you just do that 2 or 3 times, that can just bring your anxiety level maybe down by 30%, 40%.
Oh yeah.
If you can't, it's probably because there's something deeply there from your past. But there's a difference between trauma, or there's a difference between anxiety and stress. Stress is what's put upon you, and anxiety is your internal response to something that's coming your way, that or that you don't like. Someone's just put in the chat, why is anxiety something we have been seeing more this past year than ever? Well, that's a generalization. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think I think there's a lot of shifting and a lot of change going on. There's a lot of unrest in the world. And I think we're going through many shifts and changes, and it might be connected with we're making huge technological advances. I know that the presidency in America is being discussed as well, because that's going to be sorted out at some point. That's affected the stock market. I know I play the stock market, and I play with the American dollar around, and that's sort of like losing value all the time. So change. Ultimately, we're going through a lot of change.
I think it's a lot of this too, especially if you're younger. You're on Instagram, everyone's posting their highlight reel. You just constantly, oh my God, they get this, they get that. I don't have this. The grass is always greener. There's that. There's people, venting on TikTok or Instagram of every little thing in their life, and just people have this feedback loop. People love playing the victim. You go on TikTok or Instagram, is someone complaining about something, and then thousands of likes and comments about support. It's like, well, a lot of times people have stress and they just deal with it themselves. And now it's this echo chamber for being a victim right here on the phone.
Yeah. And there's I see a lot of that, and I kind of go, I look at sort of my posts and what I put out there, and it's kind of low numbers, but, people will pile on, won't they? Sort of like with the whole victim thing. And it's, maybe it's because people all feel victims in their own life, so they can then, attach to that sort of energy stream. And it's, it's just, okay, well, it's safety in numbers, where it just feels comfortable sort of like being in the same place. Someone once said to me a long time ago, I talked about, because I was going to change my life, I made a decision, I'm going to change my life. And the reality that I'm living currently is I'm here because I first thought that I could get here, and I gave energy to that. And I remember her saying to me, oh yeah, that only happens to 1% of people. And I remember that really cutting. Her name was Brenda. I remember Brenda Willits probably said that to me in about 2006. And I remember going, my response was, well, then I'm going to choose to be the 1%.
Right.
And I thought, well done, son. Well done. I like that. I was 32 years old, and I just remember going, yeah, that's it. So it's making decisions. Once you decide, the word decide is to cut off.
Yes, to cut.
Jesse, to cut. You cut off from what you were once doing.
Yeah.
And then
Someone asked me just recently, are you worried about a recession in the US and all this stuff? Are you worried about your job and this? I said, here's the deal. I said, anytime things get tough, it's always the cream that rises to the top. It's always that top 20%, that Pareto principle. So just work on saying, how can I be better? How can I provide more value to the general public? How can I provide better information? And if you ask that question, that's such an empowering question versus this fear, what am I going to do, and be reactionary and crawl in this hole? And it's just such a fear-based question. It's like, well, how am I going to provide more value to people? How am I going to reach more people, right? That's such a more empowering question. Whether you're a plumber, how can I get out and help more people with their clogged pipes, or a painter? It's like, how can I help more people? That's such a more affirming question.
Paul McKenna is it's a household name in Britain. He's a famous hypnotherapist. He went out to the States to do a series called I Can Make You Thin. He's friends with Simon Cowell, who does X Factor, and he made a lot of money doing that. Anyway, he wrote a book called I Can Make You Rich. He wrote a book, I Can Make You Thin, and he did all I Can Make You Smart. So all these kind of things. The summary from I Can Make You Rich is the word that you covered, which is you need to provide value.
That's it.
If what you are doing as a service or a product is valuable, you'll survive all different types of recessions. It's the same with a marriage. Like, well, if you have no value anymore to that partner, you're not going to be there anymore. Then they don't really wish to be there anymore. So it's about making yourself valuable. And again, I often think of nature. So if you're not growing, you're dying. What isn't growing is dying. And so everything that is growing is then part of the cycle and is giving back. It's necessary. There's an end to it, of course. We've all got to pass. The tree's got to die eventually. But it's providing, it's doing something. Even like trees that have fallen over, you see sort of like, and you think it's still got roots, it's still got shoots on it. And that's still giving back to the forest. It's still doing something for little critters. It's still doing something. So provide value. And how can you do that? Becoming the best person that you can possibly be. That's what nature does. That's what nature does. And there is a hierarchy and there is a top of the tree in all types of things. But it's what gets you there is so many things. And that whatever's got there has grown and been through struggle, whether it's the lion that becomes the top lion, or it's the tree. It's the biggest tree in the forest in Nottingham. What's he called? Robin Hood. Hood. We've got a 1,000-year-old tree called I think it's called the Great Oak or the Mighty Oak. I think it's called the Great Oak. It's 1,000 years old. You can't get near it now. It's still providing value. That's why it's still there. And eventually it will die. But it's still there. Provide value. Provide value.
Love it. Well, we put Daniel's info down below. Schedule a consult with him or his website, danielhill.biz, B-I-Z. So feel free, reach out to Daniel. Daniel, thanks so much. Love to see the comments section. Any questions, guys, we'll come back to it and see if we can answer. But we appreciate it. Like to have Daniel on here. We'll develop and deal with more topics in future podcasts. So put down in the contents in the comments what you guys like to hear about more frequently. So we got Daniel's info down below. He provides consultation support using a lot of the techniques we talked about today and more. Daniel, anything else you want to leave the listeners with today?
I'm going to repeat again what I said before, which is, what did I exactly say? I think I said, what is it that can help me to grow? Think about that. What is it? So sit on the end of your bed tonight. Okay. If this has resonated with you somewhat, and close your eyes, put your hand over your gut, breathe in and listen to the neurons in your gut. There's 100 million there. And ask yourself just a question of what is it that I could do that will help me to grow?
I love that.
And sit and wait and listen. And always remember that intuition often does not speak words. It's a knowing. It's like, why do birds fly south in the northern hemisphere? It's a knowing. I'll leave you with that.
Love it. Excellent, Daniel. Thanks so much.